Have you ever felt a voice inside that isn't entirely yours? A whisper that breaks through the noise of your own mind. A certainty that feels too pure, too perfect, for you to have authored it. You search for it. You strain your mind, trying to separate the divine from the delusion. Is it guidance? Or is it simply the echo of your own deepest desire? Your ambition, your fear, your tired hope? Long ago, in the dim quiet of a holy place, a young boy named Samuel knew this confusion better than anyone. He slept beside the ark of God, surrounded by the silence of a sanctuary. Yet even in that sacred stillness, a new strange sound began to stir his heart, a call, a name spoken in the dark. He was a child, serving a blind, aging priest named Eli. He had known only the routine of man. But this call, this voice, it sounded like home, yet felt entirely foreign. He ran to Eli again and again. Certain he had been summoned by flesh and blood, Samuel was learning the hardest lesson of all: how to tell the difference between the voice of the eternal and the thoughts of the self. Maybe you've felt this too. That moment when the path forward is obscured, not by lack of light, but by a chorus of competing whispers. The world tells you to strive. Your past tells you to hide. But the divine is waiting for you to learn its signature, its tone, its unmistakable truth. This is the story of Samuel. And these are the 20 lessons he learned about separating God's clear, pure signal from all the static of human noise. Samuel's first encounters were marked by fear and mistake. The voice called, and he did the human thing. He sought the nearest, most familiar human guide. He ran to Eli. "Here I am," he said over and over, responding to a human he thought he heard. Imagine the confusion, the uncertainty, the sheer cold effort of trying to reconcile the profound conviction in his soul with the tangible reality of a tired old man telling him, "I did not call you, my son." This is the state of so many of us. We hear the whisper of purpose, the stirring of faith, the command to be better, but we attribute it to a person, an idea, a motivation we've read in a book. We domesticate the divine. We try to give it a familiar face. Sometimes the voice of purpose feels distant or lost amid the roar of all the noise in your mind. The voice of doubt is loud. The voice of shame is a constant hum. The voice of the ego speaks with urgency and flattery. Samuel had to learn to sit in the silence, to endure the confusion of the in-between. He had to learn that God's call is so distinct, so pure, that it will often be the exact opposite of what your human mind expects. It is not always urgent. It is eternal. It is not always loud. It is unmistakable. He ran 3 times. 3 times he was wrong. 3 times he had to return to the quiet darkness, empty of expectation, ready only to listen. His transformation began in that moment of utter stillness, when all human input had been exhausted, when he finally stopped running and started waiting. Lesson 1. God calls the unaware. Samuel lay in the quiet of the night, convinced the whisper was Eli. He was unaware that the greatest calling of his life was happening in the background of his daily routine. We expect the divine call to arrive with a spotlight, a trumpet, a dramatic resignation from our current life. We ignore the gentle tug in the mundane. Our ego wants to feel prepared. God's voice often comes when we feel least prepared, yet perfectly ready in His timing. Stop waiting for the grand external sign. The voice does not need your awareness to begin speaking. It needs your willingness to be mistaken, to be wrong, and to simply listen again. The call is already happening. Lesson 2. The repetitive nature of truth. The Lord called Samuel 3 times. The message was the same. Samuel's response was the same mistake. The divine is patient, and its truth is persistent. Pain reflection. When we hear a conviction once, we dismiss it as an anomaly, twice as a coincidence. We wait for new input, new ideas, but God's deepest truths for you are stable and recurring. Your mind constantly tries to invent new paths. Your thoughts are scattered. God's voice is a steady, rhythmic drumbeat, Pay attention to the recurring truths in your quiet moments. The persistent nudge toward forgiveness, the repeated conviction to be generous, the same whisper of the next right step. That repetition is a hallmark of the divine, not the fleeting chaos of the self. Lesson 3. The role of the human mentor. It took Eli, a human with an imperfect heart, to recognize the sound of the divine calling his boy. Go lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." We often seek a human mentor to solve the mystery, to tell us what to do. But a true mentor, like Eli, simply teaches us how to listen, how to hold the receiver up to our own ear. Your human mind seeks a shortcut. The divine requires a process. Guidance is not revelation. It is the wisdom to name the source of the whisper. Respect the wisdom of those who came before you, but understand their role is not to speak for God, but to point you toward His voice within yourself. They provide the framework, not the final answer. Lesson 4. The voice requires intention. Samuel did not hear the voice clearly until he changed his posture. He had to be intentional and ready to say, "Speak, Lord." He moved from running to receiving. We try to listen while scrolling, while driving, while planning. Our inner thoughts are loud because our attention is fragmented. We think the divine should interrupt our chaos. It won't. It waits for focus. God's voice does not demand attention. It waits for your surrender to silence. Create sacred, intentional space. Turn off the distraction. The act of sitting, of kneeling, of simply closing your eyes and saying the inner words, "I am ready to hear," is your most powerful tool for distinction. Lesson 5. The voice is often contrary to comfort. The first message Samuel clearly received was a judgment against the house of Eli, the very man who helped him hear. It was hard. It was disruptive. Our inner thoughts always default to comfort, security, and the affirmation of our past choices. If a conviction feels easy, familiar, and immediately comfortable, it is likely the ego protecting its territory. The divine speaks peace, but it does not speak comfort. It asks you to grow. When a path feels genuinely hard but right, requiring a painful sacrifice, a difficult conversation, or a courageous vulnerability, it possesses the signature of the divine. Your inner voice seeks ease. God's voice seeks holiness. Lesson 6. The signature of humility. Samuel was called while serving. He was a boy, sweeping floors and trimming lamps. He was not called from a place of public power or great achievement. Our inner thoughts equate voice with status. We believe our calling should be loud, prestigious, and noticed by others. We feel we must be worthy before we are called. The voice of God finds you in the lowest place of sincere service. The most profound direction often comes in the humble daily work you are already doing. The divine doesn't need your stage presence. It needs your availability in the small moments. Check your heart. Is your desire for the message or for the messenger's status? Lesson 7. The voice bears the weight of truth. When Samuel went to Eli with the message, he was afraid to tell him the whole truth. It was a heavy, difficult truth. We fear the difficult truth in our own lives, the change we must make, the addiction we must confront, the apology we must offer. We disguise the truth with rationalization. The voice of God is heavy with truth. The voice of the self is light with rationalization. Examine the conviction that settles in your heart. Does it feel liberating and heavy at the same time? That combination, the freedom of truth with the gravity of consequence, is the clearest mark of a divine word. Lesson 8. Discerning silence from absence. After the initial word, the scripture is often quiet. Samuel's life continued, but the obvious voice was not constant. He had to learn to operate in the interim. We think if we can't hear God, He is absent. We fill the divine silence with our own anxious planning, overthinking, and worst-case scenarios. We mistake calm preparation for abandonment. Silence is not the withdrawal of God. It is the space for the seed of the last word to grow. Stop generating noise to fill the void. When the clear direction fades, turn your attention to nurturing the last instruction you received. The divine trusts you to walk the path you've already been shown. Lesson 9. The voice speaks of being. Not having Samuel's calling was to be a prophet, a judge, a guide. It was a state of being, not the acquisition of a specific kingdom or treasure. Your ego's voice is obsessed with acquisition, titles, money, approval, things. It focuses on the external result. The divine focuses on the internal character required to sustain the result. Your inner voice promises possessions. God's voice promises a transformation of your person. When a thought arises, ask this simple question: is this driving me to be better or just to have more? The answer will immediately reveal the source of the instruction. Lesson 10. The clarity of obedience. Samuel's transformation into a recognized prophet was not marked by a grand vision, but by the fact that the Lord let none of his words fall to the ground. His clarity came from fidelity. We seek absolute clarity before we obey. We want a fully detailed map before we take the first step. This hesitation is the voice of doubt, which paralyzes action. Clarity does not precede obedience. It flows from it. If you have 80% clarity on the next right step, move. Action is a form of listening. The fog of confusion clears only when you move your feet through the last instruction you were given. Lesson 11. Recognizing the voice of the past. Samuel's early years were under Eli, a good man whose family was deeply corrupt. Samuel witnessed the tragic end of a legacy built on human indulgence. Your inner voice is often just the unhealed wounds of your past. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, the memory of shame. It's the voice of your old self, trying to keep you safe in a familiar cage. God's voice calls you to the future. Your own thoughts tether you to a comfortable past. When a thought brings anxiety or shame, trace its origin. If it sounds like a mistake you've already made or a lie you've already believed, it is likely the echo of the past, not the instruction for the future. Lesson 12. The voice is unburdened by human flattery. Samuel lived to an old age, dealing with the fickle, demanding nature of the people who constantly asked for human kings, rejecting the unseen king. Pain reflection. Our inner voice is highly influenced by the desire for approval. We shape our choices to gain the applause of those around us. The ego loves a compliment. The divine voice does not flatter you. It charges you with a purpose. Does this decision feel primarily like an effort to impress or to serve? If the outcome relies on public admiration to be deemed successful, check the source. God's voice is satisfied with integrity in the unseen. Lesson 13. The pause. Before prophecy. Before Samuel anointed Saul as king, he spent time alone with the Lord. He learned to pause and consult before acting on public pressure. Pain reflection. We rush to execute. We act on the first urgent thought we have, often fueled by pressure, expectation, or a self-imposed deadline. We forget to check the compass. Urgency is the language of the human mind. Stillness is the posture of revelation. Implement a mandatory pause. When you feel the need to send the email, make the call, or speak the word, enforce a 5-minute silence first. That stillness is the crucial gap where the divine instruction can override the human impulse. Lesson 14. The distinction of authority. Samuel spoke with an authority that wasn't his own. When he judged or anointed, his power came from a source he constantly acknowledged. Your inner voice loves to claim authority, to say, "I deserve this," or "I know best." We confuse our personal wisdom with divine command. The divine voice speaks with authority because it is pure command. Your thoughts speak with confidence because they are fueled by ego. When you feel certain about a direction, ask yourself, am I claiming this power for myself, or am I exercising a trust given to me? Humility makes the distinction clear. Lesson 15. The voice endures disappointment. Samuel had the devastating task of rejecting Saul as king. It was a deep personal sorrow for him. The prophetic path is not always one of successful outcomes. When a goal fails, your inner voice rushes in with self-condemnation and despair. It tells you the guidance was wrong or you were unworthy. It equates a failed outcome with a failed self. God's voice is true even when its execution by man is flawed. Separate the message from the messenger's performance. The truth you were given was solid. The execution may have been imperfect. Do not let disappointment convince you the original guidance was a lie. Lesson 16. The principle of non-attachment. Samuel had to anoint a new king, David, even while the old king, Saul, was still on the throne. He had to be willing to let go of the established plan to follow the new instruction. Our inner voice becomes attached to the first plan, the first vision, the first path. We cling to what worked yesterday, even when the divine is ushering us into something new today. The voice of God is a river, not a reservoir. It flows constantly, demanding your non-attachment. Regularly review your goals and plans. Ask, am I still following the current instruction, or am I clutching the map that was valid 5 years ago? True guidance is dynamic and fresh. Lesson 17. Recognizing false peace. Saul often sought Samuel when he was troubled, but only to receive comfort and validation, not genuine conviction or repentance. He sought false peace. Your inner voice offers a quick, shallow fix for your guilt. It will try to justify an action and label the brief feeling of relief as peace. This is anxiety disguised as resolution. False peace is the absence of conflict. True peace is the presence of God in the conflict. Check the depth of your peace. If it requires ignoring a painful truth, it is false. If it allows you to step into a difficult moment with quiet strength, it carries the signature of the divine. Lesson 18. The voice is forged in intercession. When the people turned their backs on the divine king, demanding a human king, Samuel was devastated. He felt the pain of their rejection as his own. He knew the path they chose would lead to sorrow, but his response defined his connection to the voice. It was not despair. It was not abandonment. It was intercession. When the people sinned, Samuel declared, "Far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by ceasing to pray for you." His commitment to intercession was absolute. He understood that his purpose was inseparable from the destiny of others. His personal clarity was tied to the collective well-being. He was not just listening for himself, he was listening for the world. Your inner voice is primarily focused on your own needs and outcomes. It is insular. It worries about you, your job, your reputation, your comfort, your safety. It views the world as a source of threat or opportunity to you. This self-centric noise is the loudest static in the receiver of your soul. It makes empathy feel like an inconvenience. It makes sacrifice feel like a loss. When we listen through the filter of self-preservation, the divine message becomes distorted. We hear a command to serve as a command to shine. We hear a command to give as a command to gain. The selfish voice is a masterful translator, twisting every divine word into a promise of personal reward. The voice of God always carries a conviction for the well-being of the collective. It is fundamentally sacrificial. This is the great distinguishing factor. Does the thought lead to courageous generosity or careful hoarding? Does it ask you to risk your comfort for the sake of another's dignity? Or does it advise you to secure your own fortress? The voice that speaks of only you is never the voice of the eternal. It is the voice of the small, scared self. When a thought arises, examine its scope. Does it focus only on your gain, your survival, your comfort? Or does it also carry a genuine sacrificial desire for the betterment of others? Intercession is your litmus test. When you pray for others, you momentarily silence the demands of your ego, and the true voice, the one forged in universal love, can finally penetrate the quiet. Make your listening about the world, and you will hear God clearly for yourself. Lesson 19. The test of simplicity. Samuel walked a path of spiritual power, yet physical humility. He was the most important spiritual leader of his era, yet he commanded no armies and built no palaces for himself. His authority was not derived from the trappings of success. Samuel lived a life of relative simplicity and purity compared to the kings and priests he served. His life was a testament to the fact that power does not require extravagance. The greatest truths need no grand embellishment. Your inner voice complicates things. It attaches prestige to complexity and sophistication. It demands elaborate systems, detailed hierarchies, and specialized knowledge to prove that the path is worthy. It makes the spiritual life feel like an impossible series of obligations, 1,000 steps required before you can be ready. This complexity is the ego's attempt to control. If the instruction is simple, it bypasses the need for the human mind to feel smart or necessary. We complicate faith because we fear the vulnerability of simplicity. We build walls of jargon and tradition around the most essential truths, because the essential truth is also the most exposed. The self wants to be known as the master of the mystery. Truth does not require complexity. God's clearest calls are often surprisingly simple. The voice that speaks of truth speaks of connection, honesty, and love. It does not speak in riddles designed to make you feel inferior. The voice that truly guides is so pure, so elemental, that even a child can grasp it. If a direction you feel is demanding overwhelming complexity, a dizzying amount of planning, materials, or prestige, ask if you are overthinking what the divine has made simple. The purest call is always reducible to love God and love your neighbor. Find the simplest, most immediate act of love in the instruction you are receiving. That radical simplicity is your test of authenticity. Lesson 20. The final listening post, the sustained dialogue. Samuel did not retire from the conversation. He did not achieve a level of spiritual maturity that rendered the whisper unnecessary. The greatest tragedy in the spiritual life is when we assume we have graduated from the need to listen. We falsely believe revelation is a one-time event, an instant installation of knowledge. Samuel's life concluded in long, persistent service, having never stopped listening to the whisper he first heard as a boy. He never tired of saying, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." His final posture was the same as his first. He modeled the profound truth that spiritual power is not in knowing, but in attending. His wisdom was not a storehouse of past answers, but the immediate result of present obedience. We become weary of the process. We crave a permanent, loud, undeniable voice that will eliminate the need to re-listen every day. We seek a spiritual retirement, a moment when the answers are locked in place and the uncertainty is finally gone. But the voice of the self is fueled by this exhaustion. It tells you that if you really heard God, you wouldn't have to keep trying. It sells you on the illusion of finality, a dangerous spiritual deception. But the divine is dynamic. The world changes. You change. The guidance for today is not the guidance for tomorrow. You are a different person now than you were yesterday. The persistent requirement to return to the quiet, to once again assume the vulnerable posture of a servant waiting on instruction, is the ultimate testament to faith. This continuous dependence is not weakness. It is the highest strength. The voice that began in a whisper is the voice that sustains you until the very end. The conversation must be continuous. Your life is a continuous conversation, not a one-time message. The voice of God is not a final destination. It is the path itself. Your task is not to possess the voice, but to attend to it. To carry the receiver with you, always tuned to the eternal frequency. The constant tuning is the spiritual work. Commit today not just to hearing one time, but to the habit of being ready to hear always. See your life not as a project to be completed, but as a dialogue to be sustained. Return every day, every hour, to the intentional silence. That humble return to the beginning, that willingness to say, I am still listening, is the final profound act of faith that separates the prophet from the pretender. Endurance in listening is the true mark of a life called by God. The boy who ran to Eli in the dark was replaced by the man who stood fearlessly before kings. Samuel's transformation was not magical. It was disciplined. It was the slow, deliberate work of intentional listening. He found the source of the whisper, and he learned its rhythm. He learned that the journey was not a search for a final answer, but the conversation itself. The greatest revelation was the constant availability of the divine. The confusion resolved itself into clarity. The tension dissolved into purpose. The whisper was no longer a mystery. It was the compass for his soul. The fog of doubt lifted because he had ceased trying to navigate by the flawed map of his own making. He stopped trying to figure it out and started trusting the source. He learned that the greatest difference was not in what the voice said, but in its nature. Its source betrayed its intent. The human voice is always tethered to its own survival. The divine voice is tethered to your highest potential. He learned that God's voice is never manipulative. It does not threaten love to coerce action. It is never shaming. It does not dredge up old failures to paralyze your steps. It is never demanding of your past perfection. It speaks of possibility. It speaks of redemption. It speaks with the pure, unwavering tone of love and truth. A tone that your deepest heart already recognizes. It is the melody of your origin. It resonates with the deepest, most authentic part of you, the part that remains untouched by fear. The constant storm of your inner thoughts are often the chaotic wind, full of rush and anxiety, fueled by what you fear and what you lack. The voice of the ego says, hurry, you're running out of time. The voice of the divine says, be still, I am here. The human mind creates artificial scarcity and urgency. The divine mind creates eternal opportunity and patient guidance. But the divine voice is the rock-solid foundation that remains after the storm passes. It is the steady, quiet certainty that does not need to yell to be heard. Its strength lies in its gentleness. It commands authority not through volume, but through absolute trustworthiness. It only needs you to stop running. Stop chasing the noise. Stop generating static. It only needs you to say, not with weariness, but with courageous openness. To assume the posture of profound listening. To finally accept that you do not need to be the hero of your own story, only the faithful listener. The journey of Samuel is the journey of your own heart. It is the universal pilgrimage from noise to signal. To live a life of meaning is to become an expert discernment artist, a master of recognizing the subtle, holy difference. You must learn to separate the urgent, anxious demand of the ego from the eternal, patient call of the divine. The secret to this separation is not complex. It is found in intercession, which forces you out of self-focus. It is tested by simplicity, which strips away the need for prestige. And it is sustained by persistence, which demands daily surrender. This is the art of spiritual mastery. This is the lifetime discipline of true purpose. It is the daily, moment-by-moment choice to prioritize listening over dictation. The voice you seek is not lost. It is not hidden in a scroll or sealed behind a mountain. It resides in the deepest, most quiet chamber of your soul. It speaks gently, persistently, waiting for you to create the necessary silence, to take the posture of humility, and to move past the fear of being wrong. The ego fears mistake. The divine embraces the learning. It is waiting for the servant who is ready to hear today, tomorrow, and every day after. It asks not for perfection, but for availability. Your greatest work is not found in public declaration, in the applause of the crowd, or in the size of your achievement, but in private fidelity, the sacred, unseen act of returning to the stillness. The world will continue to shout. Your past failures will whisper doubt. Your ambition will urge you to rush. But the voice of truth is the constant, quiet undertone beneath all the chaos. It has the tone of eternity. It has the signature of unconditional love. It is waiting for you to complete the cycle Samuel began. It's waiting for you to say the three most powerful words a servant can speak. Speak, Lord, I hear. The conversation is now open. The silence is waiting. Will you assume the posture of profound listening today? This moment of listening, this intentional silence, is your most sacred power. If you wish to sustain this dialogue, to keep that guiding whisper close, subscribe to the channel now. Let us remain together on the path where the true voice is found.